All right, so what's good? All right, look, I did a video about Floyd Mayweather and Canelo Alvarez, basically talking about people saying Floyd was an opportunist and making these narratives about him fighting guys when they were too old or when they were too young. All right. Anyway, I didn't want to make the video as long as longer than I did. So let me just touch up on Canelo, and I'm gonna go into something else. Canelo Alvarez, right? Like, nothing that I'm even saying is focused like at throwing shade at anybody. I'm saying the way people talk about the fighters and what their motives were, okay? And what their motives are. I think Canelo Alvarez is a solid fighter and he has some good wins on his record. But if you see the video, I don't want to go into all of it again. I explained what I was saying about the comparison with the two. But even like him fighting Triple G, they started talking about Triple G's age. And again, this was a thing where, who do we want to win, Triple G or Canelo? You know what I'm saying? So Canelo, when he won, you started hearing even Max Kellerman talking about Triple G's age and whatnot. But again, I feel like they saw something in Triple G that made them say, you know what, we can beat this guy, man. Anyway, regardless to who you thought won the fight, they saw something. And we were talking about, people say things like, back in the day, everybody fought everybody. Not necessarily. Because you can take any fighter and you look at their record and say, okay, well, out of all of this guy's wins, his top fights was this guy, and this guy. Okay, everybody that you being a great fighter don't mean every fighter you fought was a great fighter. Sugar Ray Robinson's record is really impressive because of the amount of fights he had as well. But one of the things we were laughing about, I said, man, name 10 people that Ray Robinson fought. That was great. And you have people that can't name anybody other than Graziano. They'll name a few people and go, oh, wait, but... So what I'm saying is, knowing the history doesn't mean, everything you say is just spot on. But what I'm saying is knowing the history of these fighters, to how they rank. Because a lot of people that Ray Robinson beat is not even ranked in the top 50 greatest fighters. Okay, so when they make these rankings, which I don't really care about anyway, because it's all opinions, and they look at, you got some people may have a better record than other people. That doesn't mean you're to beat that person. Then sometimes it's like, hey, we'll never know. But I looked at them saying everybody fought everybody. No, because I can think of a lot of fights that didn't happen that I wanted to see happen. But like, if you take the golden era, Ray Leonard, Duran, Hagler, and Hearns, they all fought each other. And people try to throw Benitez in there, but Benitez really didn't have enough, because other than fighting Duran and Leonard, I mean, there's nothing that people really talk about with Benitez. But Benitez was a solid fighter. 17 when he won his first championship. And this is one of the things, too, that when people say, oh, Canelo was only 22, or this guy was only 22, and Canelo had a bunch of amateur fights as well. But when we talk about people fighting, I remember them having a tournament. James Toney and Mike McCallum fought for the middleweight title. Well, it was actually a Marvin Hagler trophy. Marvin Hagler was present ringside. None of them was ever accused of retiring without fighting the best in their division. Whether it was them, people say, well, that's because they proved themselves. Yeah, well, as long as you're fighting, you have something to prove. I remember Ray Leonard got booed, man, when he fought Duran in that third fight. He literally got booed out the ring, man. And people don't want to bring these things up. But let me say this. James Toney, Mike McCallum, Michael Nunn, those guys was the next batch. Terry Norris. Ray Leonard did fight Terry Norris, and it didn't go the way he thought. And I believe because Terry Norris was a beast, man. But Terry Norris was known to lose focus, make mistakes. Terry Norris would beat a guy so easy sometimes. He's in there, and Terry he could box, but Terry wanted to get you out of here. I remember him and De La Hoya, they had a double main event. And if they both won, then they fought each other. De La Hoya won his fight. And Terry was tearing this guy up. And got careless, got caught, got dropped a couple of times. I mean, it was like, come on. Like, you know, it was one of those things, so we never got that fight. Okay, but Julian Jackson was there as well. Hagler could have fought Jackson. Hearns could have fought, you know, I mean, all James Toney. These guys were in the mix. These fights never happened, man. Matthew Saad Muhammad. I mean, we can go back and look at certain fights that didn't happen. And it's a lot. And if you really sat there and did that, and we went back to these eras of time and look at who was available to fight who at the time, you can't tell me that these guys were old when they were 32, 33 years old. Floyd Mayweather, you know, last professional boxing match was at 38 against Andre Berto. You can't tell me, oh, Leonard was washed out when he was 33, 34, because that was his age when he got beat by Terry Norris. And if that's the case, then you couldn't make a comparison in, because you got to look at everything. Not just this, just like you count the wins, you got to count the losses and vice versa. So if Floyd Mayweather at 38 was still considered pound for pound the best, and look at his resume, how many champions he beat, how many people he gave their first loss to, his resume, you got to look and think. And people say, well, the difference is there was different caliber of fighters. Man, you got people who never even won championships that they consider great fighters. And my thing is, you know, it's not about being a part of it's a certain way, a politically correct way of thinking. It's you look at who could have fought who. Why the fights didn't happen, we don't know. Mike McCallum, you know, had an issue with Marvin Hagler fighting the Beast Mugabe. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't see the Beast Mugabe the way everybody else did. And I remember Terry Norris knocking the Beast out, and I think first or the second round, got his championship at 154. He was 30 years old. People say, oh, the Beast is washed up. And you the same people, man, that look and say something like, you know, well, Floyd, he was ducking. No, he wasn't ducking people, man. Well, I mean, what makes you say he was ducking people? You say he could have fought this guy, right? But this is my point. If you guys are saying his hands wasn't the same, he had brittle hands, and he was concerned about who he could or couldn't beat, okay. Why nobody never say, how come Marvin Hagler never fought Julian Jackson? How come, you know, Ray Leonard didn't fight Michael Nunn? How come, you know, Hearns didn't fight James Toney? We could sit here and go on about who could have fought who. There's many fights. And even before that, there was different times. And you know what? It is what it is. But it's just something to think about, man. Like, people love to say something. If one person says something, that becomes the narrative now. Oh, yeah, this is this and this. No. Start really going back in your history and looking. Like, I'll give you something. This is my opinion. We were talking about Ernie Shavers one night. They were talking about who hits harder and everything. And my thing is, I said, yeah, Shavers was a hard puncher from what I understand, and, you know, but as a fighter, he was average. Oh, man, but he rocked Ali. Yeah, he rocked Ali. It's boxing. At some point, you're going to get hit. Ali didn't move as much as he used to, and we know Ali could take a punch. But I said, what did Ernie Shavers, as a fighter, what was his accomplishments? Like, what did he really do that makes him a great fighter? That people say, what did he actually do? You understand what I'm saying? So how do you define greatness of getting beat for, you know, you fought for the championship against Holmes and lost both times. And both times he made excuses and said he was injured. He wasn't, you know. What? I mean, Ken Norton is a guy, you know, fought Ali. Most people feel like he beat Ali in that third fight. You know, beat him in the first one, broke his jaw, got beat soundly in the second one. Aside from that, I remember him getting knocked out by George Foreman, and I remember him losing. There was a real solid, good fight between him and Holmes. But again, now look at his career. What did he do? So what I'm saying is, how do you take people who was never world champion or won the championship but never really had any real title defenses, really didn't, like, how do you say that these people were great? Why? Because they came from a different era? And I think that through time, unless you're still digging up, watching the Carmen Basilios and Jack Johnsons and Ezzard Charles, unless we used to watch fights on film projectors, like, for hours, just watch fights and study fights, and we would do all this, we in the gym fighting, and we'd learning from everybody. But I mean, all of these guys, man, like, if you're not watching these guys, it's people like Joey Camacho. Nobody brings him up, right? And they'll say, well, he wasn't great. Okay. And they'll say, well, he didn't come right. He came after. He was in the era, the 90s era, really. You look at Joey Camacho and you think, you know, he was a good fighter. They had, well, like I said, he wasn't considered great, but not then. But when you bring his name up to certain people now, they'll say, yeah, Joey Camacho was not. I remember when he was fighting then and people was going, it's okay. You know, there was different fighters, man, that did not fight each other. But people always say everybody back in the day fought everybody. No, they didn't. And like I said, with Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Durant, they fought each other. They have no, if you really break their careers down and just take every fighter and say, let's just take the top 5 best fights that they had against great fighters. Not just fights that they look good, no, or they were good fights, but just great fighters. Because if your opponents are not great and you beat them, how you beat them? Because Mike Tyson didn't have a catalog of fighters that were great fighters. It's the way he destroyed them. And he did his job the way he was supposed to. But you can't say Mike wasn't a great fighter. This is what I mean, how sometimes we juggle things around. It goes for this fighter, but not that fighter. I thought Michael Nunn was a great fighter. Who just, you know, he had his career and, you know, he had his ups and downs like anybody else. But at the end of the day, yeah. These fighters, you just say everybody fought everybody. No, but I can clearly sit here and just mention. I mentioned some now. I got a whole bunch that we talk about. It's like, yeah, this guy never fought this guy. I mean, hell, Frazier never fought Ken Norton. You know, did Shavers and Norton never fight? No. Did Shavers and Foreman ever fight? No. I mean, there's plenty of fights that never happened. But people say everybody fought no, everybody didn't fight everybody, man. No, they didn't. But anyway, man, just some things I was thinking about. Like, you know, start, like, go do your homework. Go look at these fighters. You ain't got to sit and watch the whole fight. Just look at who was there, who was relevant at the time. And these fights never happened. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say on this video. See you on the next one.